It's time for some brass facts. Today, an unwilling symbol of the channel, the TP9. I've already reviewed it, so I'm going to leave out most of that. There's a hyperlink in the top right hand corner for my edification, because no one's actually going to click on that link. The short of it is, the TP9 is one of the best PDWs on the market, by being one of the only dedicated PDWs on the market. It's a milsurp clone that is a clone first and a functioning firearm fourth. There are so many minor issues where aesthetics were chosen over function and usability that entire cottage industries have cropped up to make upper receivers, charging handles, triggers, and more in a vain attempt to squeeze some extra usability out of this Swiss cheese perfection. The trigger is so bad that 100% of first-time shooters will think they left the safety on, and the gun doesn't even feed hollow points for the first one-third of the magazine. The magazines themselves cost $60 and are always out of stock, and as mentioned, don't even work with hollow points. The gun itself will shift zero if you over-torque on the AFG or smash the mag into the ground to use it as a stabilizing platform. The whole thing feels like a Fisher-Price toy. Oh, and it costs $2,000. Okay, I think that about covers it. On a less brutal note, it's a fine gun, something you absolutely must seek out and want the capabilities of for it to make any sense. And yeah, for most people, this doesn't make sense as the dollar to gun conversion rate is abysmal. But if this is a capability that you are seeking out, there's fairly few guns that are like it, and most issues are actually okay to overcome with some trigger time. The trigger itself actually has a fairly good, well-defined wall. It just has that long pre-travel that fucks up newer shooters. But with some experience, you begin to learn to pull up the slack in the trigger a lot more aggressively than you would with other firearms, and treat it a little less of a first stage and more something you aggressively manage beforehand by pulling up the slack rapidly. As I mentioned, it is one of the best options on the market when it comes to PDWs, a distinctly underrepresented category that doesn't actually have all that much that isn't a chassis system. Regardless, I'm not really here to sell you on the weapon today. I've already done that, or at least I've tried. I have plenty of videos discussing the prowess or the usability of PDW type weapons. This is more of a follow-up talking about the TP9 user experience. Does it get better with a can? Should I buy a can? How does the can do? Why is the can so fucking big? Yeah, let's get started. The TP9 can is interesting, because once again we're seeing the lineage of this thing, originally being a full auto weapon, the Mp9, completely coming in and ruining our fun in the semi-auto variant, and not just in the blue ball sense. The TP9 can is designed to be flow-through and low back pressure, so we get a fairly small number of baffles for its very large size, but they're at least widely spaced. This is to reduce back pressure on the, once again, full auto variants, which will have cyclic issues if you suppress it. We, of course, don't care about that, but we're still stuck with this can design. And yes, this is the only can. Due to the TP9 being a non-threaded design, instead it relies on interface with this shroud here for mounting. Thus, there's only one can in the world that works on this, and it's the TP9 can. So you better like this can. So how is it? It's really large. Yeah, I said that already. Yeah, it's surprisingly palpable. Now, I am aware that the general consensus on the internet is that the TP9 can is typically overgassed and gassy to the face. In fact, Grantham has reviewed an MP9, right, the full auto version, and he stated that his was incredibly gassy. I can only report what I've noticed here, and I found, compared to other cans, not rifle cans, pistol cans, that this is noticeably not gassy, right? It's fairly pleasant to shoot. Now, I do get a little bit of stuff to the face, and there is a little bit of gas, especially when shooting higher power loads, or more correctly put, duty loads, like hollow points, federal hollow points, or spear hollow points. But it's not anything out of the ordinary and definitely beats other pistol cans I've found. Now, it could be that, when you're shooting full auto with an MP9, the gas kind of really builds up because, well, the gas doesn't have time to vacate the can, and that's probably very likely why Grantham was experiencing a lot of back pressure. Furthermore, it's worth noting this TP9 can is the second generation TP9 can. There was a can before this that was a little bit more expensive, and from what I understand, not that great of a performer. This is the second generation and may explain why I'm not having too many issues in terms of back pressure or gas to the face. I don't know, your mileage may vary. Now, you're going to generally want to maximize performance by running heavier bullets, so 147s versus, the ubiquitous 115s or 125s, and that will bring it subsonic. But even with supersonics in it, the 115s, 124 grains, it is murder public officials quiet. And the subs will absolutely take you that extra step, and you might even get away with it. That was a joke, Secret Service. It was a joke. Please don't kill me. The large girth of this lad also has some extra benefits, in that it's really hard to get this can very hot. Most 9mm cans, you shoot like 2.5 rounds through it, and you get third-degree burns. This thing, it doesn't even feel warm 60 rounds in, because it's so large. Now, here's the reality. All of these things are convenient, sure, but because it is, spoilers, a very large can, does any of this actually matter? A big reason or selling point or desire to own a TP9 is that it is small, and this can is big. It's huge. Humongous. A chungus among us. Large and in charge. So, does the size of this can kind of just ruin the whole point of the TP9 and kind of just make it a oversized fun toy? Maybe. In terms of concealability, yeah, with the can it's 19 inches overall length, which is the size of even larger 300 blackout quote-unquote PDWs, which make it entirely unusable in the context of on-body concealment or even stuff similar to that. Personally, for me, however, this ends up actually working out. I've sort of shifted my TP9 out of the pure PDW role that I've described so often. I have a Flux Raider and this new Strike Industries thing, and that fills that niche far better. They're smaller, they're flatter, and they kind of just conceal far better. And because I don't really need multiple PDWs, it leaves my TP9 distinctly in a different category. With all this rail space, I'm able to mount real optics to it, like a EOTech, which is what my preferred choice is, and I'm going to put back on when I finish the acro review. We get a full rifle light, full-size laser aiming modules, and more, all the while still being compact. And then the suppressor adds icing on top. This stands as a very, very capable package. In fact, capability-wise, it's not too dissimilar to most AR-15s in all categories except that small little one called terminal performance, which is a pretty big category. But hey, you win some, you lose some when you shrink down this small. When I'm going away from home, I want capability, right? You travel away from home, and so very often you have thoughts and worries of, oh God, what if the world ends when I'm away from home? And you want something with a little more capability than simply a handgun with a 15-round magazine. But here's the thing with traveling. If you do it at all, you quickly find you don't want it to be a hassle. You don't want to be a process. You don't want the gun to be a major part of trip planning. If you travel with an AR-15, car, plane, you name it, an AR-15 is a major part of the trip planning. Sure, you can kind of throw it in the car, but now you kind of want a rig potentially. You're definitely going to want a bag if you actually want to take it out of the car and bring it, say, into the hotel room or whatever. It's not subtle, and it's majorly inconvenient. This thing, I can pack it up and put it next to my clothes in my bag without actually increasing my bag size. If I'm traveling on a plane with an AR-15, you need a large rifle case. The TP9 fits in a pistol case with the can, with extra ammo. Shit, you could probably fit your night vision in there. And with that, be it in the bag, in the car, on the plane, well, you get a lot of performance in a really small package, sans that, terminal performance. We get night vision capability, active and passive aiming, illuminator, white light, 30-round magazine in the gun, a full-sized optic, and a really good length of pull, all in a really small package. This is the quintessential travel gun, get home gun, car gun, where concealment takes a slight back foot, and capability really gets stepped up a notch compared to something like a Flux Raider or this new SMC from Strike Industries. And it's not like this thing doesn't conceal. You take the can off, fits just fine under an overshirt and for sure under a jacket. And then the can ends up with serious value added. Now, this is going to be a slight detour and does apply to most cans, not just the TP9 can, but it's really exemplified in the TP9 can. For some reason, in defensive weapons usage during, we'll say, more spicy scenarios like civil unrest, there is a trend of peaceful protesters, if you will. When they hear gunshots, they tend to run towards the gunshots with the assumption, on repeat it seems, that whoever shot the gun is in the wrong. I understand the reasoning, but the reality is, in these scenarios, discharging a weapon to deal with problem number one will, yes, deal with problem number one, but the amount of times that it seems it creates problem number 2, 3, 4, 5, and 6 rapidly closing to your position seems to be disturbingly frequent and will result in what I would call a unwinnable situation. Now, this is true with most suppressed systems, and you could put a can on a Flux Raider or this SMC from Strike Industries and accomplish the exact same thing and still have a concealable system, but the sound report of this can is noticeably a step up compared to suppressing those things. I'm going to be doing some suppressor content coming up here, but the short and skinny of it is, well, not skinny, this can's huge, but the short of it is, well, this can's also not really short, but the thing of it is the can at about 15 yards is very quiet. By 25 yards, you're going to question the fact that you even heard a gun noise, especially if you don't really know what a gun noise sounds like. And the noise of the round skipping off of objects will actually be louder. You put any kind of intermediate barrier between you and the firearm, at 15 yards, you're barely going to notice it, especially if you add ambient noise in, and by 25 yards and a barrier between you and the gunshot, you probably won't even notice it. Yeah, it's that quiet. So that's sort of the TP9 and its role for me. It's become this hybrid PDW thing, where yes, I can do PDW things. It conceals well, I can put it away in my bag, it doesn't take up its entire own bag, it fits in with everything I've got, but in a pinch, thread the can on, night vision goes on, and oh shit, we're doing hood rat shit with the boys in a package that fits in a day pack with tons of room to spare. And no, you told me, I had so many comments last time. Yes, I know 5.7 exists. Yes, I know it exists. But 5.7 sucks. Shit, even the GBRS group with whatever this is have often stated how much they dislike the terminal performance of 5.7 compared to 9mm. And whatever you think about GBRS, I think anecdotal terminal performance is probably something they understand fairly well. Even if they don't understand what a cheek weld is. Anyways, would I buy this entire setup just for Mp7 At Home vibes? No, probably not. In terms of value and capability, a suppressed P320 chassis system is probably your best bet. Not quite as cool, not quite as capable in certain circumstances, but certainly way more practical and versatile versus this thing. And yeah, I would recommend that instead. Anyways, that's been some ass facts for you. Hopefully you enjoyed yourself. We'll see you schmucks in the next one.
I heard something, I was like, what the fuck is this?
It's a dog. It's an oversized coyote.
I know that TP9 can fit, but I think this beats it out.
Yeah, the TP9's thick and this is chonk. No, but you're not in a flattering position.